Okay, off we go. I'm just going to go and post this out to Discord. That's what we're doing. Hello CJ, we're taking off from Punta Eraser. Okay, so let's just go and check volume levels. So we've got the simulators quite quiet at the moment. We can probably boost that up a bit, or not maybe. Okay, so simulators looking good, voice levels are looking good. Okay, so we are in the Kodiak, and we are at Punta Eraser down on the coast of Italy, and southern coast of Italy. So you can see the sea coming in over there, some little waves breaking in the distance, and we will get going very, very soon. I will circle the area before we take off, or before we go on our journey. I've got a route sketched out in Little Nav Map. I don't know how far along we will get along it, but we'll see how we go along the way. Go exploring en route. So we're leaving Punta Eraser in a few moments. Need to make sure I've got some fuel. So let's go and put some fuel in. Fill it to 75%. Or thereabouts. Which version of the Kodiak do we have? We have the version of the Kodiak, which is the cargo version. So we can go and play before we set off with opening some of these doors and see how they work. See, pretty cool the way that works. Go back in. Can we pull this back out? Yes, we can. Grab the upstairs. Let's close this door. Lock them again. Okay. Let's go and check switches. So the lights are on. Don't need the landing lights on. Heater, heat and wheel switch on. Ignition is on. Starter is off now because the engine is running. Generators are on. We're looking pretty good. Okay, we'll go and set a cruise altitude for a long way. Or we need to go and reset the altimeter, the calibration of the altimeter to barometric pressure, which we've now done. So let's go and set 1500 feet for general use as we're flying along on the altimeter for a target altitude. There's a plane just taking off. So we'll ignore him for the moment. Let's go and get in the air and get out of everyone's way. Okay. So bringing the engine up to speed. Coming off the parking brake. Whoa, this is windy today. It would help if I gave it some mixture, wouldn't it? Whoa! What is the warning prevent? Is that just the torque level? Yeah. So we have picked the windiest day ever. Look at the crosswind. Just going to pull the engine back slightly. So let's do an orbit of the airfield to see what was just left behind. So where's the flaps? Let's go and put the yoke back on so we can actually see it. So I'm hardly touching the controls and you can see the plane's reacting quite strongly to it. Don't need to sit up. So there's the airfield we have just left. You can hear the marker beeping away in the background. So this is Punta Resa, Lima, India, Charlie, Juliet. Flying an orbit of the airfield. See there's a plane down there taxiing out. Well, just taxiing in by the look of it. Just landed. Okay, so the first leg of our journey is going to take us across the boot of Italy. So Fontana Rossa, Lima, India, Charlie, Charlie is our first waypoint. And that is going to be 100 miles across country, 110 degrees. So let's go and slowly turn towards 110 degrees. We'll avoid this hill and go around it before we make the turn. Let's just trim the aircraft out. So we're coming up to 169 knots. Just going to come off the throttle a little bit, and the pitch as well. There's no need to absolutely thrash the aeroplane on the journey. Okay, so let's go and acknowledge the frequency change.
Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo frequency change.
And we're on our way. So let's go and have a look on the map and see where we are. So we're just coming around the edge of these hills to then get on our way. So we'll thread our way through the hills, look at some of the scenery en route. So we're going to be between 1,000 and 1,500 feet for much of the route. I need to go and run transmitter. I promised I would. So connect. There we go.
500.
Just be a little bit careful with the height over the ground. So I will admit I had a look around. I was going to fly up in Switzerland again today, but I had a look at the weather on windy.com, and the whole of the north of Europe is completely blanketed in cloud and rain and strong winds. So I had a look around, and Italy's fairly clear, so Italy won today. So we're on live weather. You saw the crosswind I had on takeoff. It was quite vicious. So we're going to see how far we get. We may not land everywhere. We may just do orbits, having a look. So let's have a look at the map and see if there's a route through these hills. So we're just coming into this part here, so there isn't. So we're going to go left, or so right, through this gap over here. In fact, we could go a bit further right and go around this outcrop rather than over the top. And we're on our way. Whoa, it was properly windy. There's a lot of turbulence kicking off these hills. Look at the plane trying to rotate itself. As soon as I let go of the controls, it starts weather vaning into the wind. So let's go and have a look on the PFD wind.
500.
Yeah, we've got 30 knot winds. That explains a lot. Let's go and have a look at the map. So we can follow this valley back towards the right of the route of our flight plan. So we're heading towards Palermo in the distance. This is Palermo down here. So we're going to have a look at Palermo. Circle around, have a explore. You can see some outcroppings in the distance. So I'm just going to trim the plane out so it doesn't keep kicking itself around. So those islands we can see in the distance are going to be Alacudi Porto, Pecorini, Malfa, Lipari, Volcano Porto. So those are the small islands you can see in the far distance on the horizon. This plane is kicking itself around spectacularly in the wind. Okay, so this is Palermo, we're just approaching on the coast. Scoot over closer to the window and see it out. This looks like Palermo has been rendered with photogrammetry, which is quite interesting. And there's a small airfield over here we're just ignoring. I don't think it's been built into the simulator properly, has it? So, oh no, maybe it hasn't. So that's Bocca di Falco military airfield. So I apologise now for my pronunciations, they're not going to be very good. I didn't do Italian at school. Okay, so this is Palermo, and yes, you can see the level of detail is very good. So let's just scoot back, and I'll see it in a second. Keep an eye on airspeed, because we are getting fast. So we'll just keep that in our corner of our view. There's some ships in the harbour at Palermo. It's a dry dock, I imagine. Yeah, we're just over speeding. It's levelling out. Okay, so now we've had a look at Palermo, we're going to carry on our way. So up to 2,000 feet. And we'll descend gently back down to 1,500-ish. And level out in a moment. So look, outside. Okay, so we're saying goodbye to Palermo and heading on across the map. So we're going to pretty much straight line it now to Fontanarossa. So I'm going to engage the autopilot, and we're going to go left first to avoid this hill. So on the autopilot we're going to want 110 degrees, but being mindful of the crosswind, so we're going to have to probably go for 100 degrees. Okay, so let's centre the heading bar, pull it back down to 100, so I'm just changing the heading here for the autopilot when we switch it on. And we'll go vertical speed to climb back up to 1,500 or 1,000 feet a minute. And we engage the autopilot and the autopilot, which will stop us being thrown around quite so violently in the wind. Okay, so the aircraft is now following 100 degrees, or it would be if I switched on heading hold mode. So it's turning towards 100 degrees, climbing back to 1,500 feet. So we should have a nice path along this coast without having to do too much. So we're heading towards, you see these mountains in the distance, this will be Parco della Madoni, which are these mountains out here. So the ones we're just about to come past are here. So this is Ermo di San Felice. There's a church down here, or monastery of some description. So these hills don't appear to have a name on the map, which is a shame. So just keeping an eye on, there's 20 knot wind from the side, so we could probably get away with turning a little bit back across the wind. We're just watching the track versus the direction we're actually going. So once we get past this second hill that we're passing here, we'll look to go past through the gap here in the distance. So let's go back outside and leave it on. So this town we're just passing, Castellodaccia. Over on the headland out there was Sant'Ela, Aspra, Sicily. So we'll leave Sicily via Fontana Rossa and we'll arrive at Reggio Calabria, down on the end of it, the mainland of Italy, and then head across the bottom to Portacci, Pelesi, Machi. I'm going to give up on trying to pronounce the place names. Let's go by the places. So we're going to go to Taranto. Let's turn off some of these waypoints. So you can see what they're called. So Bari, Naples, Pescara, Rome. So you can see quite a long way to go. Okay, so let's concentrate on the sim and have a look at some of the scenery. Quite spectacular, isn't it? Look at us going sideways there with the wind. See more from here. It's not too bad at the moment. So yes, this is live weather. Turn the sound in the simulator down a bit so you can hear me over easily. There we go. Hopefully you can hear me now over the top of the engine. Actually, it hadn't occurred to me. Let's go and look in the volume mixer in Windows. Let's turn Flight Simulator down to 60%. Close that. And then we can pull this back up a little bit. There we go. So you should be able to hear me now comfortably over the engine while we're flying along. So many volume settings in Windows these days. Okay, so let's have a look and see where this port is that we're just flying over. So if we zoom back in on the map, we're just flying past Termini Imerese. Okay, so you can see we are slowly diverging from the flight path, but that's no big problem because we need to get past these hills anyway before we turn right. And we've got quite a long way to go. It's just 100 miles this leg. So we're going to zigzag in between these hills rather than climb straight over them. So let's begin by climbing slightly because we're going to need to. We're going to go up to 2,500 feet. And use a vertical speed of 1,000 feet a minute to get there. And that's happening now. And now we're going to adjust our heading and we're going to go for 120 degrees. And see how that looks on the map and see if we need to adjust any further. Bearing in mind the wind is blowing us directly across our flight path. So by the time we get to these hills, we'll probably be to the right of them, but we'll keep an eye on it. can see the wind is illustrated here on the primary flight display. We're not going to need the secondary attitude display or standby attitude display, so I'm going to go and turn that off on the breaker. Okay, so we're climbing slowly up to 2,500 feet, just coming up to the target altitude now. We're in heading mode on the autopilot. It will switch over to altitude hold mode once we get to the target altitude, so we can come outside and enjoy the view. So we're over farmland, over Sicily at the moment. Southwestern part of Italy. And Lee has turned up in the chat. Ciao, Jonathan. So yeah, for Lee's benefit, he may not have heard me earlier. I had a good look around Europe to see what the weather was like. The whole of North Europe is covered in cloud and rain, and so is Australia, but obviously it's night time in Australia and I like to fly with the live weather. So I had a look around and Italy was quite clear, so that's why I'm in Italy, following the weather. And for sightseeing, being in thick cloud and rain doesn't really help very much. Okay, so I think the idea of the wind blowing us in between these hills in the distance is going to work. I still think I want to climb a little bit though, because let's have a look at the altitude plot in Little Nav Map. Let's see where we are at the moment. We're only at, I'll switch this over to VFR for purposes of display. We're at 2,500 at the moment. So these are the hills we're just coming past. Oh, we're going to be okay, I think. We just need to be careful about the route to avoid high ground. I'm tempted to carry on climbing though up to 5,000 feet. Yeah, and we're not going to make it through that gap. We're going to have to turn right. I thought the wind might take us far enough, so we're going to do another 20 degrees to the right. So we're going 140 now. Go through the middle of this gap between the hills, and we're going to raise our target altitude to 3,500 feet. It's a vertical speed of, we'll just do this slowly, 500 feet a minute. Just want to give us good separation over these hills. It's amazing scenery. While the aircraft's on autopilot, we can get away with wandering around the aeroplane and looking out the windows. At the other side, lots of farmland. So this spit of land here, I wonder if it has a name. There's a castle on the other side, Castello del Caltafituro. Should we go and have a look, see if it's modelled in the simulator? So I'm going to come off autopilot briefly, and we're going to explore around behind this hill. I ought to go back in the cockpit to do this. I'm going to go and see if the castle is there. There's a lot of wind turbines on top of the hill over there. So let's go and look out the side. So here's the buildings. You'd imagine the castle would be here. I think it's just got a generic AI building where the castle should be. Oh, it's a shame. I guess Italy hasn't had a lot of high def work done on it yet. You can see like scenery stretching on the hillsides where they haven't got good detail for that yet. These hills over here have got good detail, this one hasn't. That's a shame. Okay, So let's get back into the centre of this valley and then re-engage the autopilot and get back on our way. So sit back in the pilot seat so we can see the gauges. We're at 3,500 feet, which is perfect. So just scooting around. Between these hills. And we're looking for about 100 degrees again now. So let's go and roll the heading knob back to 100 degrees and engage the autopilot again. Okay, so we're flying along pretty much on automatic, which is good. Still got the 30 knot side wind. Hopefully once we get over the mainland of Italy the wind will abate somewhat, but I'm just aware there are storms right the way across Europe. Oh, William has appeared in the live stream. William Kelly. Hi there, how often do you live stream? I live stream at the moment quite a lot because I've got the novelty of having a very fast internet connection. I've never been able to live stream before. So and building up the YouTube channel. So please hit subscribe and like if you can. It all helps. And it pushes my stats up, and then it obviously surfaces the channel to more people, more viewers, more people to chat with, more to build the community. So yeah, I live stream as often as I can really at the moment. So several evenings a week, usually on a Saturday if I get the time to do it, I will live stream and do a fairly long flight. So today we're flying across Sicily and then into Italy with the Kodiak, seeing how far we get. Oh, this is an interesting little town on this hilltop. Let's go and find out what that one's called. Polizzi Generosa. Interesting. God, can you imagine living up there? I guess you get a lot of hilltop towns in Italy. Yeah, so we went for the right height, look, because that hill is coming up right underneath us.
500.
There's our shadow. If we have a look from outside, you can see us skidding sideways across the wind, heading for this hilltop in the distance, which we will hit if we don't climb. Okay, so we're going to go and raise this to 5,000 feet. I thought we might end up at 5,000 feet somehow. So there's no hurry about doing it. We'll go 500 feet a minute. Yeah, we've also got these hills in the distance here as well. Oh, thanks for the sub, William. That's great. So yeah, I do a mixture of either just live streaming, flying around, or sometimes I do proper like educational videos showing people that are just starting out how to operate the various aircraft, how to work the autopilots, some of the basic procedures in like starting up and operating the big jets as well. So I'm just a simmer, I'm not a real world pilot, so it's things I've learnt along the way, and I'm just sharing what I've learned really. I do, through my work, I've done a fair amount of teaching people, so I'm a little bit more thorough in explaining things and going step by step than others might be, just because I have the experience of teaching people in the real world. So yeah, it's just breaking things down. I like to understand how things work and why things are done a certain way. I think the classic case of that is either the Airbus or the 737. Obviously when the PMDG 737 arrives in Flight Sim, there's going to be a raft of videos of real world pilots showing the startup procedures for it, because it's a lot more involved than the Airbus. So anybody coming from X-Plane will be laughing all of a sudden, because if they've had the Zibo 737 in X-Plane, then they've seen the study level big jet and they know what's involved. Andrea Marco saying, hey, hello, welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe and like, please. I'm just getting used to asking people to subscribe and like. It seems very odd. I'm not used to selling myself at all. I usually just put videos out and let them live or die on their own merits. Doing this live streaming lark is new to me completely. Okay, let's sit up in the cockpit, maybe have a look outside, see where we're going, have a look at the map, make sure we're still on the right track. We are still on the right track. So we've got a long cross-country leg at the moment. We're just going past Enna on our right. So if we go and spin the camera around, can't really see it out there in the distance, but Enna is out there. It would be at about that direction. So let's have a look on the map. If we measure distance in Little Nav map, we have got 45 nautical miles to go to Fontanarossa at Catania. I apologise for my pronunciations in advance. I'm not an Italian speaker, never have been. So it's going to be interesting. Once we cross over from Sicily towards Italy's mainland, we're going to fly up and visit Terma, and eventually I guess it'll be several hours away yet. We'll get to Naples. When we get to Naples, we'll have to go and see Vesuvius, won't we, and fly around it and see if we can find now, where is Pompeii? Am I being blind on the map? Where did the top of the mountain land? I thought it was on the slopes of Vesuvius. Maybe it isn't. Oh, there's Pompeii. It's to the southeast of Vesuvius. So yeah, we'll go and look at that. I wonder if is Herculaneum marked on the map easily. But we'll have a tour around looking at Vesuvius when we get there. Lee saying Vesuvius is about to erupt. We better not fly into the caldera then and set it off, had we? Okay, so there's a wind farm coming along the top of these hills. I imagine there's going to be lots of wind farms across the top of the hills in Sicily. So let's have a look on the instruments, see how we're doing. We're at 5,000 feet now, so this seems like a good altitude for cruising across the hilltops and doing a bit of sightseeing of Sicily. It's a wonderful place, isn't it? I've never flown here before, well, not in the simulator. So it's a wonderful landscape scrolling past. Lots of farms, forests. The wind farm just passing by. It's amazing. Something that always fascinates me in the Kodiak is the accuracy of, even if you open the window, the sound changes and you hear the wind. It's very clever. It's nicely done. That's a lot of windmills. Okay. So where are we? We're heading towards Fontanarossa. So William Kelly says he's flying in the Kodiak in California right now. It's dark in California, isn't it? I know you can manipulate the time. I tend to go on live time all the time and go and fly somewhere where it's daylight, usually in the GA aircraft. Next time you do a live, can you show us your setup? I actually don't have much. I have the Airbus stick, the Airbus throttle quadrant, and that's it. I have one screen. I use a second laptop purely to be able to comment on the live stream because I only have one screen. So I've got a 4K screen, and otherwise I've got a microphone on a boom to talk into that's plugged into a USB port. So yeah, I've got a very minimal setup. I haven't got a big, a clever cockpit setup like lots of other people have got. That's why I tend to use all of the instruments in the aircraft, and I actually quite like that, because I tend to think if you've got a kind of replica master control panels and things for the autopilot stretched across your desk, they often don't correspond with the aircraft. Or if you've got like the G1000, is it real sim gear? Make a replica of the G1000 that you can have on your desk. And yeah, that's great until you're in an airplane that doesn't have a G1000. So William says, I'm flying around my home airport, not a real pilot though, and can only fly at night time. So yeah, I changed the time. Yeah, I do the same sometimes. But I tend to go and pick somewhere to use live weather that is, the time conditions I would like. So if I'm flying late at night, I would often maybe go down to Australia, where it's early morning in Australia. But at the weekend, I might often go to Switzerland if the weather's good. And today it isn't. It's horrendous. Okay, so let's go and have a look out the window. Oh, there's a good town on the hillside over here. So that town on the hillside is Agira. I'm not sure how you pronounce a G like that in Italy. Enna Shooters Club. Oh my word. You wouldn't want to be called Enna then, would you? Let's go and look out the other side. Wow, that is some farmland, isn't it? That's crazy. More windmills on the hill over there and across the valley. Whoa. So this hilltop town we're about to fly past, to our left, is going to be Centuripe, is it? Centuripe? I'm not sure how the Italian pronunciation works with those letter combinations. Andrea Marco says, cool. William Kelly, Kodiak and Twin Otter are my favourite planes right now. I don't do much with airliners, just the CRJ sometimes. Yeah, same with me. I sometimes do group flights with a group called My Air, and they use the big jets, so they've got, the Airbus, and use the CRJ from time to time. I think my favourite for doing instrument flight is the CJ4 with the working title mod on it. Makes it very, very good. Okay, that's a view and a half, isn't it? I guess if we scoot across the cockpit. I wonder, is there a... I know you can adjust the pilot's height in the settings. I don't think there's a key binding to shift you up and down, which is a bit of a shame. So you could put ourselves up in the top of the cockpit to look down and out across the landscape. So you end up having to slide around the cockpit to see out the windows. So there's that town we were talking about on top of the ridge. So is that the ocean we can see way out ahead? I think it is. Let's go outside. And we're just about to pass over a village. So the village we are passing over is Catania and Raisa 2. Raisa Il, I guess that is. Isola di Niente. Look at us being pushed sideways by the wind. That's crazy. Okay. So we need to start thinking about the approach into the airfield. We're only about 15 miles out now. So based on the wind, I don't think we're going to be able to stop. It's going to be too dangerous. that's just a pure crosswind. So we will circle Catania, have a look at the buildings, and then we're going to head straight off up the coast and cross over the sea to Reggio Calabria. Yes, this is the Google. Somebody's asked. William has said, "Is this the Google Maps data in Little Nav Map?" Yes, it is. I've got the Google Maps terrain add-on that somebody made. It's linked to in the add-ons section in the Virtual Flight Online Discord server. If you search for Google Maps and Little Nav Map, you will find it. It takes a little bit of finding. Somebody made it. It's not entirely official, but it's by far the best map for doing, kind of VFR flight. Because yes, there's all the normal maps in there as well, like OpenStreetMap. But that doesn't give you that, and the topo map is very slow usually. But the Google's terrain map is by far the best, and it's very fast. So we're going to fly over the top of Catania. So we're coming in towards the airport. We will be turning for 34 degrees when we leave, which will take us into the wind, so we'll make very slow progress for the next leg, given the wind speed, I guess. So let's start descending, seeing as we're going to go and do some sightseeing. So we want to bring our altitude down to 2,000 feet, or 1,500. And vertical speed will come down at 1,000 feet a minute. Keep an eye on the indicated airspeed. Just to make sure we don't overspeed the airframe. We should be good. It's when we turn into the wind we need to be mindful, because obviously our indicated airspeed will go through the roof when we turn left. So gear down and unlocked has said, Jonathan just joined the stream. What is your view on the Kodiak from SimWorks Studios? So this is the Kodiak from SimWorks Studios. I think it's the best, or it's the most polished general aviation aircraft in the simulator at the moment. For this kind of class of aeroplane, it has got the highest quality 3D model. You can see it's stunning. Absolutely stunning. There seems to be no detail they've left uncovered. There's one tiny bug in it we've noticed, that you only get hot gases from the left exhaust, you don't get them from the right. Other than that, the flight model is stunning. It's by far the best flight model, possibly of any aircraft in the game. You only have to have tried to climb too slowly and seen it drop a left wing and start to spin to realise just how good the flight model is on it. But also within the aircraft, the modelling is fantastic as well. So if we go and have a look around, you can see just the quality of everything in it is just a step up from anything else you'll see in the simulator. And pretty much everything works, which is also quite entertaining. So yeah, all of the breakers work. All the switches work on the panels. The master control obviously works for the autopilot. All the sound buttons work. Everything works. If I where's the mouse gone? Here we go. Even the coffee holders work. And I don't just mean that one. I mean all of them. All of the overhead lights work, so you can play games with turning them on and twisting them around. It's great fun. Oxygen up there. We've got a little light up here which you can adjust the brightness on. Obviously you'd point that at your instruments normally. So yeah, during takeoff and landing you can pull the harnesses on your seat belts, and obviously all the fuel cut-offs and everything work, so all of your startup procedures are correct as per the real thing. So yes, it's brilliant. Yeah, oh, that's another thing. It's got a climate control system inside the aircraft that works. So you can so when you go to high altitude, you will start to grey out, and you will have to go and switch the oxygen on. You've got a finite supply of oxygen that doesn't last forever. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And if we go and plug the standby attitude breaker back in, I switched it off earlier. We've got this standby attitude indicator, which has got its own operating system, which is absolutely insane. So it's got its whole menu system in here, which has got a book of its own to go and control. It's absolutely brilliant. Obviously the G1000, I think it's compatible with the other versions of the G1000 that you can get in the sim. Okay, so I'm going to come off autopilot now, and we're going to go and do some sightseeing. So this town is Catania, on the edge of Sicily. We're about to cross over the sea in a moment, go towards Italy. So I thought it might be fun to go and have a look here. So I'm going to pull the throttle back, and we'll go and have an explore. So it looks like this has been done with photogrammetry. So just descending. Whoa, there's some umbrellas on the beaches. So let's just sit down in the seat so we get a wider view and get our view into the window. It's a ship in the harbour. Yeah, there is no EFB, but I guess they're presuming in the real aircraft you would probably have a tablet if you're going to do that. So it's not built in, so you would run your own alongside the simulator if you want to have an EFB. So it's pretty much is the aircraft as it would come from the manufacturer, and there's lots and lots of versions of it as well. You don't just get the one. So you get kitted out differently for passengers, for skydivers, for and all of the hardware on the plane changes to suit. So if you have, it's quite amusing. I'll just do this quickly while we're flying around. If we go and look behind, so I'm just going to keep an eye on things. So if we go and put some weight in the back, look what happens. You get parcels. Just making sure. So obviously you adjust the weight and you get different parcels. Obviously if you've got the one kitted out for passengers, people appear behind you. So we're going to pull that payload back away. Or should we put some payload in and pretend we're delivering chocolate biscuits or something? So this is Catania. It's an amazing place, isn't it? There's a little harbour down there. There's the main harbour. Oh, and an aircraft has come to join us. Let's go and have a look outside and see who that is. If that's a Savage Cub, they might have a job staying with us. Or is it a Porter? I think it might be the Porter, actually. Okay, so we're going to go on our way. So we're looking for a turn to 34 degrees. Bearing in mind the wind, we probably want 30 degrees. So let's go and program that in to the autopilot. We're just using selected heading mode today. So we'll begin our turn left now. Coming up to 3,000 feet, so we'll aim for that for a cruising altitude, which is pretty good. use vertical speed to get there of 500 feet a minute. So did we say 30 degrees on the autopilot? And then switch the autopilot on. It's already got selected heading mode, it's got altitude hold mode, so it's going to climb towards the target altitude on its own, 500 feet a minute, and it's already taken that away because it's nearly at the target. Okay, so propeller and prop are set for cruise, and we're on our way again. Yes, missionary bush pilot does have his own tablet. So yeah, the pilots often have the tablet with the applications that they like running on them. Yeah, so each to their own with that kind of thing. Obviously I cheat and tab across the little nav map, which you could kind of say is my electronic flight logbook. So we're heading 30 degrees across the ocean to the mainland of Italy now. So this is Etna, Mount Etna that we're seeing over here on the corner of Sicily. I remember when I was young, Mount Etna erupted. I can't have been very old when it happened, but I remember watching the news footage of it. So it's still a very active volcano. Okay, see you next time, William. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so anybody watching, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really does help. So, let's go and have a look. We'll do some sightseeing. I'll leave the view looking out towards Mount Etna as we fly along the coast of Sicily towards Italy, to mainland Italy. Okay, I'm going to go and grab... Oh, hang on a second. William said, oh, do you do group flights? Yes, I do. On a Sunday night, regularly. If you go to virtualflight.online on the internet, you will see that we have a Discord server, and there's a link to join it at virtualflight.online. So it has an accompanying Discord server. We meet up on Sunday evenings for flights, and in the Discord server there is a channel for events. And you will see the next event is Long Island, I believe, this Sunday evening. They always start at 8 PM GMT or UTC. So you have to work that out for the time zone where you are. So if you're East Coast America, that's going to be what, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. Yes, I'm on the Virtual Flight Discord. I created it. I'm the founder and the administrator. I also created the transmitter program. Mostly because I was really annoyed that Little Navmap couldn't show human pilots on the map. And of course now it can. Bizarrely, the transmitter program, the first version of it, I wrote over one lunchtime while annoyed. Alec Clapperton, afternoon Captain, just about to fly the next leg of my round the world in the 172, Poland into Ukraine, EPLL UMBB. Oh, good luck. 172 is quite slow, isn't it? That's the only thing that puts me off it, but otherwise it's a fantastically modelled aircraft. I often use the 172 over the smaller Cessnas, the 152 or 153, I can never remember the numbers. Purely because the 172 has autopilot, so you know, if you're doing a long leg you can switch it on and go make a coffee or something. Obviously you can't do that in the real plane, you'd have to get a flask out of your bag, I guess. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas for the transmitter program to make it better, I'm open to ideas. I tend to think though it does the job it does, and it does it well, and it doesn't actually need to do much more. All it does is, broadcast where you are so you can see you on the map. Obviously at some point in the future Asobo will make an API for aircraft location, and when they do that, obviously transmitter won't be needed anymore, but for the moment transmitter gives you your position so you can see where people are on a map. You can see at the moment, if I look on this little nav map, any of the red aeroplanes are transmitter aeroplanes. If you have the same call sign in the simulator as in transmitter, so here it is here, look, in the simulator I've got GJBEC as my call sign, and in transmitter I've got it so it doesn't show it twice. Yeah, otherwise I'd see a red aeroplane as well for myself because I'm running transmitter. So all transmitter does is broadcast to where people are. If you've not seen it before, we'll go into a browser, go to Virtual Flight Online, which is the website, and if we say who is online in transmitter, it shows you all over the world little red aeroplanes on a Google map, just for quick reference. And if you click on any individual one, like me for example, it will pull up my information and scroll the map to me, and I can zoom right into me as well to see exactly where I am. And you can do that for anybody. Also you can do things like you can see a waving hand next to somebody's name there. What that means is they have written #invite in the notes in transmitter, which is basically saying to everyone, if you want to come and fly with me, please do. A star means there are notes. So if I go and click on Wackle here, he's put his Discord link in, which is fine. So you can say what group you're with. So when you connect transmitter, you can specify your name and your group name, and you can change the notes while you're flying, and they will change on the fly when anybody clicks on you. So I'll minimize it instead of shutting it, so you can see it's actually broadcasting my position right now. Every 1 minute this map updates, so you can leave this on, but the better way to do it is actually little nav map itself. So if we close that, to get the aeroplanes to appear in little nav map, all you have to do is go to the tools menu, options, go to online flying, and then switch the online service. This is where you would choose VATSIM or IVAO for example. Choose custom, put the URL in, all of the instructions are on the website by the way, put the URL in, give it an update speed, and you have to say IVAO because that was the format I output the data in. And as soon as you do that, the little red aeroplanes appear all over the map. So you can see there's a little group flight happening over here. So every 5 seconds you'll see the aeroplanes move. See, they're just shifting along gently through the sky. And you can click on the aeroplane to find out their information. So if we go show information, you can see this is Philippe. He's flying the FWB Corendon, whatever that is. Let's go and see what Eric is flying. Show information on Eric. So yeah, they're obviously a group flight with the same aeroplane. So let's go and look elsewhere in the world. We can see some more red aeroplanes around. There's one here. Wackle is Bush pilot. PMDG DC-6 is flying down over the Bahamas. So yeah, so it gives you an idea. So you can very quickly and easily find out where people are, and if you're in a group flight situation, it's fantastic because you can see where the group is on the map. Okay, so we should be getting closer to Italy. We can see Italy in the distance now. So let's keep an eye on Etna as we fly past. So Lee Rose either can speak fluent Italian or he's been off to Google Translate. Yeah, I've flown, Alec was saying in an earlier comment about the 152, I've used the 152 for some instructional videos about radio navigation, purely to remove any ability of myself to not fly it by hand. So I did some videos doing a VOR navigation and flying a plane completely manually to show that it could be done, and even with the GPS in little nav map switched off, just using VORs and figuring out where you are by triangulating between different radio beacons and doing ready reckoning, and it's great fun, or dead reckoning as people call it. It's great fun to do it, but it's quite stressful if you're having to control the aircraft and trim it the whole time and make sure, you know, while you are looking down at your lap at your notes, that the aircraft hasn't started to bank and turn, and especially if you've got any turbulence, because obviously that masks what's going on. But yeah, so obviously today I'm cheating. I've got an aeroplane with a wonderful autopilot, and it follows it pretty accurately, and the weather is coming in. I thought we were going to get quite clear weather today over Italy, but so much for that, hey. Let's go and have a look at windy.com and see what it's saying. So if we go to browser, windy.com. So we are down over the boot of Italy, so we'll zoom in. If you've not seen windy.com, it's fantastic. It shows you animated arrows of the direction and the speed of the wind. So we're just crossing over here, and if we go and switch on the clouds, yeah, so it's just patchy cloud that's regional. As we go further into Italy, we'll leave it behind, which is great. Because as you can see, I originally planned this morning to fly in either Germany or Switzerland, and I just thought, no. Although saying that, Switzerland has cleared since this morning, but the wind is, there's this massive weather system coming in, and there's some horrific winds swirling around North Europe at the moment. Okay, so how are we doing in the simulator? So we're getting closer to mainland. Let's have a look on the map. So we need to turn north. So the bearing from us to Calabria is 15 degrees. Looking at the wind, so we probably want about 12 degrees on the heading. So we're going to turn now to 12 degrees. The aircraft is following our instruction. And I'm going to go and make a quick coffee before we get there and start thinking about if we can land. We'll descend at Calabria and see what the weather's like. So Gear Down and Locked said, I learned to fly in a C-152. Solo cross-country flights were challenging. Yeah, any aircraft without autopilot, it's a real kind of mental thing, isn't it? Oh look, the simulator has paused. So is that the weather that has crashed? Or is that the multiplayer that has crashed? Let's see how it recovers. If the clouds rebuild, we know that the weather server's just had a fit. Wait for it. No, the weather moved. So I would imagine that was the weather servers coughed their guts up just then. And that happens so regularly it's untrue. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, when you get close to an airfield, the weather changes. I think what's going on, or what a few friends have speculated happens, is there is a regional weather in the simulator that's coming from Meteo Blue that it follows. So when you're away from any airfields, you see a generic weather for the area that's coming from the weather modelling. When you get close to an airfield, you get the real METAR information gets added to it. So suddenly the weather will change when you get close to an airfield. And the transition between that, I think, causes havoc sometimes. Or when Meteo Blue is updating the... Or we know there's obviously a job running in the background that resynchronizes the weather with what Meteo Blue are giving the Microsoft team. I think when that job happens, that might be when the pauses happen, I'm not sure. It's odd because sometimes you can go for hours without seeing any pauses, and sometimes you'll see 2 pauses inside half an hour. So Alex is saying, I really like your videos on radio navigation in the 152. When I get a PC, I will certainly be learning it. It's a bit of an odd one though, because the VOR stations are becoming obsolete and being shut down one after another. So at some point in the not too distant future, you won't be able to do it anymore in the real world, and it will all be GPS, which I guess makes sense. Because yeah, VOR radio navigation was the only way before GPS to do long-range flights. Makes you have a lot more respect for the transatlantic flights. So before GPS came about, they would only have had inertial guidance and the radio beacons. And yeah, I'm doing some very advanced fancy maths for their ready or dead reckoning. Although saying that, the inertial guidance has become fantastic. Most of it, so how do we put this? Inertial guidance systems owe an awful lot to the Apollo program, because that really pushed that whole technology forwards. The Apollo guidance computer had a fantastic inertial guidance, and it was really the first kind of accurate miniaturized version of it that had ever been built and used in anger. Yeah, there's a simulator for the PC called Orbiter, and you can get an add-on for it for the Apollo program that gives you a study level Apollo moon rocket or Saturn moon rocket with all of the various modules, and every button works and everything's simulated to such a level that a team got the last working Apollo guidance computer and they restored it and got it up and running, and they plugged it into the simulator and it worked. So how stunning is that? So they could use the real guidance computer to drive the spacecraft in the simulator. There's some fantastic videos on YouTube about it, about the engineering team, and some of them were the ex-NASA engineers that worked on the real thing, and some of them were university students who were doing it as kind of a side project alongside their studies. But it was fascinating to have the real engineers from the Apollo program going through the various circuits with the students, explaining how it all worked. And obviously their knowledge was invaluable. So we're just turning along the coast slightly. Let's see where we are. So yeah, the airfield's going to be out here on this bit of land by the look of it. So I didn't get around to making that coffee, did I? But yeah, the Apollo, the computers on the Apollo capsules had so many innovations for their time. The actual Apollo guidance computer is remarkably small, and it probably amazes most people to know it was a hypervisor. So the machinery could run virtual operating systems. So it's way ahead of its time. It's effectively a very small version of something like VMware or Virtual PC or any of those, or VirtualBox. It was kind of doing the same thing, but obviously on a much smaller scale. And with a tiny amount of RAM. Okay, so we're slowly approaching. This is Italy now. We are passing along the coast of Italy. So what's the name of the villages we are passing over? We've just gone over the top of Palermo and Spiaggia Calypso Relax, whatever that means. It's obviously a holiday place. Castello di Santo Niceto up in the hills to our right, so up there somewhere. Presumably that's it there, or maybe up here. There's a waterway we're just about to cross. There's the airfield. I'm just going to go and have a look. The wind is still 30 knots. That's just crazy. And because it's exposed on the coast, that's not going to get any less when we get down there. So I'm going to give that a miss as well, and we'll go further inland and hopefully get away from the wind soon. So we've got a long leg coming up, 60 miles to Terma. along the coast. So 57 nautical miles, 25 degrees magnetic. So let's start preparing for that now. We'll just fly over this airfield and get a look at it as we go over. It's just too windy to even think about trying to land. Luckily we put a lot of fuel in the Kodiak. Okay, so we're going for this fairly long leg. We're going to climb to 5,000 feet. Vertical speed, we'll do it at 500 feet a minute. We're not in a hurry. We're going to push, oh no, we'll leave the throttles as they are. We're on about 80% power at the moment. Direction, we need 25 degrees magnetic, but looking at the wind we want to be heading into that slightly, so say 22 degrees magnetic and we'll see how we go. So 22 degrees on the compass, and we'll see if that counts as the wind for us. And we're going to fly over the hills. Yep, the scenery in Flight Simulator is amazing. There's no way around saying that. It's stunning. I mean, look, you zoom in, look at the traffic on the road below us. See everybody going off to do their shopping this Saturday. You see the waves breaking on the shore. It is amazing. It's a windy day, so there's white caps on the waves. Even, you know, out in the ocean you can see the white caps. It's amazing. So we'll leave the view there for a few minutes. I'm going to go grab a coffee. We'll just before I do that, we'll just keep an eye on this. So it's looking pretty good on the direction on the map. So we're flying along the coast of Italy, right down in the far southwest corner. And I'll be back in a few minutes. Let's move the camera around. Let's have a look at where we are. So we've got about 30 miles to go until we get to Terma. Lima India Charlie Alpha. We're going to have something to eat while we're en route. Take the opportunity during this long leg to have a look. Let's go and maybe move the camera while we're on the autopilot to watch the scenery going by. Let's go and stand on top of the parcels in the back of the aeroplane. There we go. I'll leave it there for the moment. I'm going to have something to eat. I'll be back in a few minutes. Just a quick shout out to Sayo Shaughnessy. He's just said, "Hi pilot, loving the scenery. It's one of my favourite countries to fly over." I will admit I haven't really flown much around Italy in flight sim, so it's all a bit new to me. I'm just going to go and pour that coffee out. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so just catching up with the stream. When I do my flights from Birmingham down to the Middle East or Northern Africa, it's some of the best scenery, other than the region around the Alps. Yes, I completely agree. Sai is also saying, what setup are you using, if you don't mind me asking? So, the computer is an Intel processor, a fairly modern one. It's got a NVIDIA 3080 graphics card. It's got 16 gig of RAM. It's a pretty quick machine. I'm running on a 4K screen, but I'm only broadcasting at 1080p. I could broadcast at 4K. I choose not to because most people haven't got it to download anyway. I've got the major differentiator that I've made just recently with the setup is I've got a very fast internet connection now. So I've got 400 megabit up and down, and that's fibre to the house. So that's made the biggest difference. Other than that, it's just, you know, stock flight simulator with a couple of extra aircraft. I've not really meddled with the simulator. It's the NVIDIA 3080. I'm going to get the letters wrong. It's the mid-range one anyway. It's not the ridiculously expensive version. Is it RTX? I think they call it. I limit the simulator to 30 frames a second, regardless. It's on Ultra, but it's limited with VSync to 30 frames a second. I can't see the point of ever running it faster than that. You get these idiots in the forums and the various discussion boards all pontificating about being able to run it with a few extra frames a second more than each other, and I just think that's a bit ridiculous. Okay, so we've just passed by our destination. We're looking at the speed of the wind. It's down to 18 knots, so we're going to come off the autopilot and we're turning back in towards just messaging somebody on my phone. Hang on a second, I'm rubbish at multitasking. Just letting them know that I'm live on YouTube so they can come and watch if they want and see this hilariously bad landing that we're about to execute. So just looking at the wind, we have now got a tailwind. So it looks like we're going to have to come in for runway, what is that, runway 28. So we'll do a left. We'll cross over and do a left circuit. We'll cross across the runway, cross across the airfield, I should say. And we'll do a left circuit. Okay, so let's turn away from the airfield. So this is going to be pretty extreme wind. Oh, it's down to 11 knots. Okay, so our, our touch and go idea to go to the various airfields is going to be back on now, because we do have, so we can see the end of the airfield over there. Down to 90 knots. Flaps down. Sit up in our seat so we can see where we're going. Get rid of the map. Don't need it. Fly across the runway. Angle. See the runway. Flaps down. Someone's asking in the chat what controllers I use. I've got an Airbus stick and an Airbus throttle quadrant. So I've got the Airbus throttle quadrant. It has two throttles on it. So I've got the left one for throttle and the right one configured. I've gone and overshot the approach now. I've got the right one configured for the propeller pitch, which seems to work quite well.
500.
The Airbus throttles are quite nice with planes that have got reverse pitch on their props, because it's got a detent with a lever for the Airbus to go into reverse thrust, so you can use that for other aeroplanes as well. We're just coming in quite fast, 90 knots. There's not much wind at all down here. It's just 11, 12 knots side wind, so it's not too difficult to deal with at all. The plane will snap right because the tail will be pushed left as soon as we touch. And there it goes. So we can catch that. And we can increase the throttle, and look at the wind trying to get under the wing. So we're wrestling it back to the centre line. Get enough airspeed to climb back out again. So yes, I've got the Airbus throttle and joystick. Okay, so we're just climbing back out of. Look how it's crabbing. It's mad, isn't it? Side winds are. It doesn't look too bad when you're in the cockpit, but when you look outside and see the airplane going sideways, you think, "Oh, really? Was that me?" Okay, so flaps up. And let's see where we go next. So 24 degrees, we're going across the bay. So we're going to spin around to 24 degrees and carry on the direction we were going. So you see the reflections of the clouds in the glass at the moment, which is quite cool. Excuse me. Okay, so we're leaving the airfield behind now. So I'm just wondering how we do this. We'll go through a gap in the hills over here to find our way out of this area. watching the farmland pass by underneath. And we're heading into the hills to climb over them. Just going to try and find a link on my phone to send to somebody that's just messaged me. So hang on 2 seconds. I'm doing really badly at this today. Link. Okay. We're just climbing up. Whoa, we're going to get a crash to desktop. There it goes. So Flight Simulator just crashed to desktop with no warning whatsoever. It suddenly went. So I'm just rebooting it. It'll be a couple of minutes. I'll eat my sandwich. We'll take off from, where were we? Last reported position before the UFOs abducted us was just north of Terma. So we will respawn at Lima, India, Charlie Alpha, and we'll be back online very shortly. That's the first sudden crash to desktop I've had in a while. So we will be back shortly. Continue in normal mode. It will load eventually, honest. Right. Let's see if we can get this thing back in the air, shall we? Oh dear. Crash to desktops, eh? Everybody has them. If I get just north of here again and it crashes, we know it's the area and not me. Okay. For some reason they've put the landing lights on again, which will take off. We'll put the pitot heat back on. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's just straighten ourselves up. Turning into the wind is trying to push the tail to the left. Whoa! And it's trying to get under the right wing. And we will weather vane into the wind. And we'll wait until we get some airspeed up. And we're off and running again. So flaps up. I always forget that if you spawn on the runway you've already got the flaps down and there's too much flaps for this kind of wind. I'd have rather had higher ground speed before it came off the floor. Okay, let's get the autopilot sorted out. So altitude. I'm going to go for 3000. We haven't set the barometric pressure either, which was massively off. Go for 1000 feet a minute. Go for heading hold mode for the moment. And autopilot on. So aircraft stops dropping and starts climbing to 1000 feet. Oh, sorry, to 3000 feet at 1000 feet a minute, and we can start thinking about our plan again. Hurrah! So heading. We're going to spin it round to 30 degrees. So about a 90-degree right turn. And we'll try and do this again, shall we? Just proves everybody gets crashed to desktop now and again. If it happens again, it's obviously to do with the servers with this region of the world. So we were going to try and cut through this valley here, Defacer. But there is quite a steep climb at the far end. I don't think there's any way of getting around it. We are going to be climbing at some point, so let's go for a higher target altitude. Let's go for 5000 feet again. And just do some sightseeing rather than flying the valleys, which can be quite dangerous. So torque is up near the limit. We could push it a little bit to get a bit higher climb rate if we really need to. Let's get the wind back on the PFD. Back, advisory. There is no, this is just the engine inlet advisory. So let's go for a higher 1500 feet a minute. We're pushing the engine torque right up near its limit. I think we'll get over the hilltop. We're preparing to disengage autopilot and turn right if we need to avoid the hill. I think we're going to be fine now. Because we're heading into the wind's coming under the wing, we're going up like an elevator. Looking good. Oh, I'm back on track. Oh, we've got the ATC complaining at us now because obviously we just took off and they want to hand us off to Unicode. So anybody that's not aware of that, if you're not in controlled airspace, you will get handed off by the tower at the airport you have departed, and you'll go to Unicode, which in most of the virtual airlines, or most of the virtual systems within the simulator, use 122.80 as their Unicode. So Unicode basically means all the pilots in the area will tune their radios to the same frequency as each other, so then rather than asking for permission to do things, you announce your intentions. So if you are approaching a given airfield, you would say you are entering the pattern, so left or right pattern, whatever it is, and it would announce your positions around the pattern. Yeah, just responding to Sai in the comments. I don't get the panels going black. I've never had that happen. So that must be related to something else. Oh, we have snow this side of the hills. Sudden weather change. That's fascinating. So we're going from nice green temperate hills to snowy hills just over a ridgeline.
500.
So we're going slowly back towards our flight plan. And this is a long leg out across the bay. Shall we make it a bit more interesting and go and visit somewhere along the way? Although this is still just like farmland, there's nothing really to see along the way. So we're about to get some hills and some clouds. So I'm wondering about changing our route here, just to get to the sunnier part of the landscape, because this is pretty horrendous, isn't it? just for a bit of fun along the way, let's go and climb up to 8,000 feet. Which is about the limit you want to be before you go into oxygen, I guess. So we're going to do this at 500 feet a minute. We're just going to gently climb to 8,000 feet. It's just I'm getting a bit worried about some of these hills around. So then we'll have no issue with just flying straight line. So let's go and have a look outside. So we go down the back of the plane, crouch down, and we can see what's going on out here. Maybe we will increase that climb rate. I'm just watching this hilltop coming straight towards us. I thought I could hear another aeroplane. Let's just go and have a quick look at the instruments. -8 degrees. Good job we have the pitot heat on. I'm going to go and put the windshield icing on. You can see ice was starting to form around the edge of this window. We've got a nearly 40 knot, 40 knot headwind, which is no fun at all. We have a partner in crime now flying along with us. That's a turbo porter. Yeah, the somebody's Sire's just commented in the live chat. Live weather is improving massively with the new seasons being added. Yeah, the weather has been a work in progress since the sim came out 18 months ago. So it's got better and better and better, and I kind of feel a bit sorry for the people who went out and bought weather add-ons, because the stock weather now makes everything else look like garbage basically. And obviously people try and defend their purchasing decisions, but it's half the reason I've not bought any add-ons other than 2 or 3 aeroplanes for the simulator in the whole time I've had it so far, is because it's a work in progress and they are slowly improving it on all fronts. The same is true of the scenery. I have not purchased any add-on scenery, and I daren't, because they are improving it and improving it and improving it. And a lot of the big airports are already done to a high level. And okay, yeah, you get some people that maybe work on the ground at some of the big airports, and they've gone and created really high definition versions of those airfields, but I struggle to see why it's important to have the garbage cans in the right places in the far corner of an airfield when you're 20 miles out on approach and you just want the airfield to look somewhat like the real thing. It's a bit mad to go to the level that some people go to. But that's, you know, each to their own, and they obviously have fun doing what they do with modifying the simulator. Just don't expect me to be doing anything like that. Okay, you can see the wind has been pushing us dramatically the whole time, so we're going to go back to... So what direction are we going? We're trying to go 30 degrees at the moment, so we're going to turn that to 20 degrees. So we're turning left 20 degrees, selected heading mode on the autopilot. We're just coming up to 8,000 feet altitude, which looks to be about right to clear these hills. Outside air temperature is -9 degrees centigrade, therefore we have got the windshield icing on. We've also got the pitot heats on to stop the indicated airspeed from freezing up. Cruising along 150 knots or thereabouts. So our ground speed obviously is not going to be great. So you can look over here, we've got 137 knots ground speed. So it's not great because we've got this headwind. How are we doing with the route? Now, do we put some markers in? So we'll say add a position to the flight plan there. And maybe we fly around this bay. Add a position. Add a position. And add a position. And we'll just mark those out on the map. So when we come up to the next waypoint, so we'll need to make another turn 10 degrees further left to head more towards the marker. So just so we have some scenery to see along the way, really. So another 5 degrees and we should be pretty good. Okay. Give this on the outside view while we're flying along through the clouds. We're at 8,000 feet, so we're up in the clouds now, which is going to obviously limit our visibility, but it's not too bad. I'll pull the microphone over closer to me. So this area of Italy, or this range of mountains, is the Corigliano Calabro, and this park is Parco Nazionale della Sila. I'm not sure exactly how we pronounce that. We can go and obviously throw it into Google Translate and get it to speak it for us. Did you know you could get Google Translate to use native languages when it translates things, so it will say it in the local accent? It's very good. Struggling to keep up in the PC6, so I will pull the throttle back gently So I'm just bringing the torque back. So my airspeed should start to fall off, and it is falling off. So 150 knots, let's come back a bit more then. So I'm about 50% on the torque now. Of course we have to be mindful, when I took off I only had half a tank of fuel as well. We had more fuel when I originally started the flight. So I'm down to 140 knots or thereabouts. So hopefully that should make it a little bit easier for you to keep up. Yeah, I can see you in the distance behind me. So I've just dropped 10 knots off the airspeed. Okay. So we're slowly coming up to our waypoint where we are going to turn left. We could just follow the bay, I guess. But not that there's much to see at the moment because we're at such high altitude. So let's drop back down now towards sea level. So we're going to reel the altitude back to 1500 feet again. Obviously it's going to take us a while to come down to 1500 feet, so we're not going to worry about choosing a low altitude straight away. And we'll come down at 1000 feet a minute, so in about 5 minutes time we'll be back down to 1500 feet. Obviously the speed is going to increase, so we will come off the throttle a bit just to arrest the acceleration. And we are descending back through the cloud. You can see that happening. Looking at 140. Okay, let's pull down. Although if you're descending as well, you'll be accelerating. So I'm holding about 150 on the descent. And we'll start turning left to follow this coastline. So let's go to 340 degrees to begin with. Whoa. 340 on the compass. Look outside, yeah, I can see you right behind me. We're back inside. So this town coming up on our left is obviously we can see the name of the hospital, but that's covering up the name of the town. Rossano Stazione. So we're going to do another turn, another 20 degrees left. Turning left to 320. Again, we're still descending. Just coming down to 5,500 feet. So 4,000 feet to go. Put the yoke back on. Turning to 300 degrees. And that should be good. And we're just dipping down below the cloud level. So the clouds look like the base is going to be at about 4,000 feet by the look of it. Look from outside. We can see the PC-6 coming in behind us. The turbo porter. It's interesting how the nav lights are not projected in exactly the right place in the multiplayer, isn't it? It's a shame. Yeah, I got the Kodiak on about you saying, Si, that some of the planes are very expensive. If you keep, although you'll be going, if you're on the Xbox, you'll be going via the marketplace, I guess. So you don't get much choice. When I got the Kodiak, I looked around, and the original developer, this is obviously for the PC, the original developer was selling it cheaper than anywhere else. Oh, we got a pause. What's going on with that then? That's going to ruin your formation flying. Sim is pausing. See if the weather drastically changes when it reloads, or the multiplayer aircraft will disappear, and when it comes back it will take a few minutes or a few moments for it to load back in. There we go, look. So that was probably the multiplayer that crashed. It's certainly to do with the network infrastructure that causes the pauses. Okay, so we're getting this nice view of the sun coming down through the clouds now on the hills, and we're going to fly the coastal path now, so we're going to start turning the heading back slowly. So 330 degrees. And let's see how long it takes the multiplayer to re-sort itself back out, because it's pretty awful, isn't it, when it does it? Well, there's a pretty view of the sun through the clouds. Yeah, I always buy from the... so Williams just said in the chat he always buys from the developer if he can. Yeah, so do I. Because obviously the likes of Orbex or Aerosoft or whoever, they all just make a cut. And it's quite... It's not annoying, but some of them are just shameless about it. So I went to SimWorks Studio to get the Kodiak, and they were quite significantly cheaper than everywhere else. Sometimes you don't have any option though, like for example the Twin Otter that recently came out was only available from the Aerosoft shop, so that's where I got it from. Aerosoft have been trying to combat the pirates, I think, that they've now got this Aerosoft One application, so whether they're going to start encrypting the aeroplanes, I'm not sure. I know it's against the Microsoft terms to put any kind of spyware services in the aircraft, which Milviz were playing with. Some of the early versions of the Milviz aircraft were doing that, although multiplayer's back working. So some of the early Milviz aircraft they were calling home to a server, and they were checking serial numbers and things like that, and they've removed all of that because it was causing instability, and obviously you can't do those kind of tricks on an Xbox. Okay, so we are down to 1500 feet and we're only doing 120 knots, so we're going to open the engine back up and turn left another 20 degrees around to 350. So we're just following this bay. It's going to look like a very jagged pattern as we follow the bay. So let's have a look around us. This little settlement here is Langhi di Sibari. Marina di Sibari is just coming up ahead of us here. Fuscalara is this next town along. So yeah, we're going to follow this arching bay all the way round and then carry on along the edge of the water before we come in for Grottagli, or Taranto really. So let's go and fly by hand for a while, just to keep this entertaining. So off the autopilot, we're going to descend and fly along the beach. Yeah, Carinado are the same. They're obviously a label, but they have lots of developers that sell their aircraft through Carinado. Some of them, you know, some of the Carinado planes, it's difficult to know whether they've just... I guess everybody hires contractors, don't they? So we're going to go and scare everybody with their umbrellas to death along this beach. So let's cut the throttle. Coming in quite fast. See the waves rolling in.
500.
900. Ah, Carinado only sell on the marketplace. I didn't realise that. Do they not have their own store online? I will admit I've never really used Carinado aircraft. I know my father has. He's been simming for a long time, and yeah, he on FSX and P3D he had a lot of Carinado planes that he owned. But I wasn't aware that you can only get the Carinado planes in the marketplace for flight sim. Okay, this looks like an interesting scenery aberration coming up. Should look from outside. So what's going on with this? It's obviously a ridge, but it's not really rendered very wonderfully, is it? There's something sticking up there in the surf. Tree. Pylons. Always keep a lookout for pylons. Just think each of these houses is based on a real house that really stands there. There's real people that work in them, that live in them, that have families, that have relatives, that have stresses, and that laugh and have ideas and stories to tell. It's so many people. That's the thing that always strikes me when I'm flying over towns and villages in Flight Simulator, is all the real people that really live there in the real world. Whoa, that river's huge. I think it's just fascinating to fly past all these settlements, like towns and cities, and to see all the houses and think about all those people that live there and wonder what their lives are like. Yeah, there are all sorts of issues, just reading the chat, about the marketplace. There's all sorts of issues to do with licensing with the marketplace, where you have to adhere to certain licenses, which is why the fly-by-wire A320, it was in the marketplace and then it was removed, because the developers of the fly-by-wire A320 wanted to be able to share their code freely, and that's not possible under the restrictive licensing terms that Microsoft impose on aircraft in the marketplace. So the fly-by-wire Airbus is essentially open source, which means what it says, that the source code is freely available to anybody who wants it. And some of the developers on the team of the fly-by-wire Airbus weren't happy with the terms of the Microsoft licensing. Therefore, they ended up with two versions of the aircraft. There was the marketplace version and then the release version that they were building themselves. And the marketplace version had particular features missing because those developers that worked on that feature weren't happy with the licensing. Either that, or potentially they were using other open source code, and part of open source licensing is if you benefit from some code that you are using that you've got from elsewhere and it's under a shared license, it means you have to share the source code of what you have released. Therefore, the version of the Airbus in the marketplace had that issue. We've just had another pause, by the way, you can see that happening. So yeah, therefore the Airbus in the marketplace, there were elements of its source code that had to be shared because of the licensing. Therefore they had to make a separate version of it that didn't have those bits of code in it. So then you end up forking the project and you have two separate code bases to look after, and it just becomes a nightmare. So they chose to pull it from the marketplace entirely. So I'm going to open the throttle back up. Trim the aircraft back out. Keeping an eye on my phone for messages. Let's have a look from the outside while we're climbing gently over here. This simulator is very good, isn't it? Why are the lights strobing? Let's have a look. Did I put it accidentally on pulse? Yes, I did. Landing lights on. Off. Taxi lights are off. Nav strobe and beacon are on. Which is perfect. That's better. This simulator is very pretty sometimes, isn't it? Get the nose back down a bit. Yeah, the water in the simulator is amazing. I'm just watching the chat room. It was Shady saying about the water. I mean, a lot of it is sleight of hand with shaders and things, but it's very clever the way they've implemented it. Message on the phone. Who's that from? Okay, so Sunday is watching me, I should say, in America. So we have some international viewers. So we're flying the Kodiak. This is for Sunday's benefit. It's a pretty cool aeroplane. We're flying manually at the moment. Let's have a look at the map to see where we are. We're just passing along, just to give a zoom all the way out. There's Italy. And we're just passing along this piece of coastline and looking at the houses and stuff as we fly along. So I'm going to lower down in altitude and we'll try and get low as we pass along the beach in front of this town to get a look at it out of the window. So you can see traffic on the road down there. It's not a very busy road today, is it? See some houses there. The engine back up. You can see the waves rolling in on the beach. And see someone else that we're flying with just in front of us. See their aircraft there. Should we do a little small detour out towards this town just to have a look? We're going to scare them all to death and get told off for overflying a town below minimums. So each of these houses obviously represents a real building. So they've used artificial intelligence and satellite mapping. So the whole of the scenery is real, essentially. Okay, let's open the engine back up and play catch up. If we go outside, we can see the aeroplane from outside. We can move the view. There we are, there's us. Flying in the aeroplane. All of the olive farmers, I guess, which farm along here. There's another settlement. Which is this town then? Let's have a look on the map. Where are we just passing by? Nova Ciriscalo. And then we've got an empty patch, and then we'll come up to a marina at Policoro. It's coming up. There's another you can see the friendly aeroplane accomplice over here. Running track. Should let some fresh air in. Obviously, this is extremely dangerous to do because I'm just going to get the plane fairly level, and then we're going to get out and go and have a wander around the plane while it's flying. You get to see some of the scenery out of the windows. It's amazing, isn't it? Better go and jump back in again. Plane's starting to roll. Okay. So how are we doing? Let's have a look at the route. So we've got this, we're about 30 miles away from Grottaglie then. So let's climb out of here. Just watching the altitude climb back up. We're coming up to 500 feet. Airspeed's obviously dropping off because we're climbing. It's quite a big town over here. Another one just ahead of us. As we fly over the town, should we have a look down at it? So there's the port that we saw. It's a very strange looking port. Okay, let's get the autopilot back on so we don't have to worry so much about what we're doing all the time. So we go for the cycle altitude hold, it will go to the height we're at. We'll send the autopilot on, we'll center the heading bug on the direction we're going. And the plane is now flying itself. We'll climb back up to 1500. So we're just setting target altitude, 1500 feet, set vertical speed, 500 feet a minute to get there. And that's it. So now we can safely go and put the outside view on and watch the scenery. And I can send some messages on my phone while we're doing it and catch up with the live chat. What are my torque and RPM settings? So on the Kodiak I have got torque and RPM. So RPM is in the green, it's not quite in the red, and torque, so I've got both of the sticks on about 85%, somewhere around there. So it's just, you know, fast but not too fast. Otherwise we'd be here all day if we were just trundling along at 120 knots. So we are pushing it a little bit. So Sandy gets to hear me live from the US, so this is I'm never going to hear the end of this now. The time we went flying in Italy in the Kodiak. Of course, now we are on autopilot, I can safely get out of the seat and go for a wander. I should have got the version with some seats, shouldn't I? We're going to sit in the back. So you can see the workings of the wing there with the flap mechanisms, the ailerons down the end. So if we go to the final window, if you look at the aileron, you'll see it move gently now and again, and that's the autopilot causing that to happen. You'll see it just wag. You probably wouldn't. It's so imperceptible to see it moving. You can see the gap of the hinge there moves like a tiny fraction of an amount now and again, just to keep us level. There it goes. But yeah, it's a good aeroplane. See, that side is the ocean. Not much to see there. Should we go and read the safety thing? Emergency seat back release. Hey, I wonder if it works. So if we pull... Oh, it would appear the levers aren't there. There should be some levers here to rip them out, which will pull the seat out. Oh well. So at about 85-90%, we've got 28 knot headwind at the moment, so you can't take indicated airspeed much notice of it, because obviously you're taking 30 off of that. So we're looking about 180 knots, 175, 180 knots if we didn't have the headwind. Ground speed with that headwind taken into account is down to 138 knots, so you'd be looking at 160, 170 knots ground speed. Maybe even a bit faster. So yeah, the Kodiak, and it's got a hell of a range on it as well. If you obviously if you go and tune the fuel down a bit, I'm running on it. Whoops, that was the pitch, not the propeller. I don't think fuel condition is modelled for turboprops though in the simulator. The core simulator doesn't really support that yet. So you can see there, I pulled the fuel condition back, and it hasn't affected us at all. And you know, none of the torque or anything moved an inch. So with turboprops specifically, I don't think fuel condition does anything in Flight Simulator yet. With the piston engine aircraft it does. So if you're like flying the Cessna for example, and you go and the 172 or the 153, then it's obviously going to affect it quite drastically. Am I going to Rome, or have you missed it? We are nowhere near Rome yet. So we're going to Naples. I think I might knock out the cross-country leg there. So we're going to go to Naples, which is going to take a while because this whole flight, you can see how long have we been on for so far. I don't even know how long I've been streaming for. Can I see that on here? 2 hours 43 so far. So it's been quite a long stream. You'll be looking at 6 hours to get to Rome. That's going to be a bit extreme, isn't it? I have to fill up with fuel as well at some point because we've got about just over 30% of the fuel quantity left. I think today we may end at Naples. Although we could go to Rome. It would be fantastic to go see Rome, wouldn't it? But it's a 94-mile trip across from Naples to Rome, or 100 miles once you get to Rome, I guess. There's 100 and something miles. So we'll go to Bari. It's interesting, isn't it? Bari. I'm just thinking in terms of something I did over the Christmas period. A flight I arranged. So you know the St. Nicholas Christmas story. If you go and look at Turkey. Where's Turkey gone? It's down here. If you take off from Antalya in Turkey and you fly along the coast, you come to a small town called Demre. And if you look very carefully at Demre, and you zoom in, you will find the St. Nicholas Kilisesi Church. Underneath the St. Nicholas Church are the remains of St. Nicholas, and his original historical title was St. Nicholas of Bari, or Nicholas of Bari. And there you go, look, just around the bay is Bari. So this is where who we think of as Santa Claus, that the stories come from, was originally from. He was a priest from Bari, and he was known for random giving of gifts. And his remains were buried. For most of his life, he was in Semra, in Turkey, which is down here. Demre in Turkey. For most of his life, he was here, and he was buried underneath the church at Demre. So there you go. So that's why every time I see Bari now, I think about that story. When MBP flies, he just sets it to high idle and never touches it again. Who's MBP? I'm sorry, should I know that name? Oh, somebody bush pilot. Oh, crikey, my brain! I can't think of his name. Okay, we're just coming up to Grottaglie, so let's go and have a look at the airfield. Should we go and turn the airfields back on now on the map? I decluttered it earlier so we could see what we were doing. So we're going to go for runway 35. Okay, so let's come off the autopilot and do a right turn. And we're going to fly into this airfield. So it's about 20 miles away at the moment. So we're just going to approach the coast, low over the sea. What's the island there? Is it marked on the map? Yes, it is. Isola di San Pietro. So at least we got some things to see along the way. So we'll overfly the island while going on approach to the airfield. Missionary bush pilot. Ah, sorry, yes. So he just leaves that on high idle all the time. It's interesting. I've never really watched his videos in that much detail. I know he has a little switch box on top of the on top of the panel that he uses as a checklist. It's got nothing inside it, it's just a series of switches with labels on. I thought that was quite a clever idea. It's just a, a visual reference that you've done everything. And obviously it's very low tech, it can't go wrong. It's just a box with some switches on it and some labels. I think he actually sells them. But yeah, Missionary Bush Pilot's videos are very good. I thought it was interesting when he introduced his other half in the aeroplane a little while back, and suddenly you just saw the tone of the comments change instantly, and the inappropriate comments arrive, and you just think, really? Can people really not just, they've been following the channel for however long he's been recording for, and he's become enormously successful, and the moment his other half sits in the plane, the comments just go straight into the gutter. I just wish the moderation on YouTube was far stronger and would just boot people instantly and ban them from ever. If people are going to do that, it's unforgivable, really. And they call it banter. It's not banter to the people it's aimed at. It's like when we do the group flights for Virtual Flight Online. At the start of almost every flight, I've had to actually make a point of saying to everybody, right, there will be no, on the voice chat during the flight, there will be no sexism, no racism, no, all the usual things that you have to ban or warn people about. And so, if there's any of it, you will be kicked instantly. Because we had, I don't want to go and name a particular group or a particular country's people for doing it, but it was a particular country, and we had to react to it because they were at risk of getting the server shut down. What they thought was funny was offensive to just about everybody else in the room. Yeah, it was a while ago now, but it really annoyed me to think that, as soon as you give people a yard, and some people don't just take a yard, they bring their manifesto of unsavoury thoughts, views and opinions with them that they really shouldn't be sharing in a public forum either. If they'd said it at work, they would have been fired for it. And yet they don't seem to realise YouTube is a public forum. If their employer heard them saying the things they were saying, they'd probably get fired for it. It's like the whole thing as well about casual racism that goes on the internet, with certainly people of older generations making fun of people's accents and stuff. And it's just like, how do you tell them to stop it without being really blunt? It can become really difficult sometimes. Alright, we've got the PC6 coming in for an inner mishap. Where's he gone? There he is. So let's go and have a look. So we're going to turn in towards runway 35 very soon. We should have visual on the airfield before long. We can see the airfield buildings out there in the distance. So Si has just mentioned about how the fuel works. I'll explain it, of what you're actually doing with the fuel mixture. So, a combustion engine, it doesn't really relate to turboprops, it relates to combustion engines. In a combustion engine, so you know, with pistons and the whole bit, like a Cessna or a Bonanza or whatever, the way an internal combustion engine works is you need fuel and you need air to burn, and they are mixed at a given ratio, and what we would call a rich mixture is the most powerful mixture for ground level, for sea level. Yeah, so it's kind of done within various, it's balanced for the general use of the aircraft. So at sea level, the rich mixture will be at its rich. I'm just going to answer the door, hang on a second. My daughter's just got back from a hockey match, so right, I'll carry on explaining. So you need fuel and air in an engine for the combustion to happen. At sea level, with a rich mixture, all of the fuel is being burnt based on the amount of air coming in. Yeah? The air is denser at low altitude. Yeah? So the higher in the sky you go, the thinner the air becomes. Yeah, so you'd see that with mountains and stuff. People try and climb mountains, they suddenly need oxygen kit to go at any kind of height. I'm completely missing the airfield while we're talking about this. So as you go higher in the sky, not as much air in volume is coming into the engine, so you have leftover fuel, so the engine is not running efficiently. Yeah, it can't burn all of the fuel for the air that is coming into the engine, so you can reduce the fuel. Yeah, you can't control the air. Yeah, there's no way of controlling the air coming into the aeroplane, but you can control the amount of fuel that's mixing with the air. So if you've got less air coming in, you can reduce the amount of fuel, so the balance of fuel to air is kept, so it will be efficient inside the engine, so it won't, you know, muck up the inside of the engine and flood it. Because you've probably all experienced an engine that's flooded before. So we're just lining up for an approach here. So that's the reason aeroplanes have an altitude limit. It's not just that the wings run out of air to use, it's that the engine runs out of, it can't gather enough air to ignite the fuel. Yeah, because the air gets thinner and thinner. So it's not just the wings, it's the engine itself that won't be able to operate efficiently enough, which is why propeller aircraft often can't go as high as jet aircraft. And it's not just the wings, it's the engine as well. Okay, so we're on approach.
500.
Going to cut the throttle back. We're going far too fast. So when you find yourself going too fast, you can side slip. So I'm going to introduce right rudder and left wing down, and keep the nose up. And we'll look at the speed coming off. So we're skidding the plane sideways through the sky, using the side of the plane as an air brake. So now we can drop the flaps. If you practice side slipping, you can pretty much do it without deviating from the course you're on. So you introduce the left wing down at the same time as right rudder, for example, or the other way around, so left rudder and right wing down. Going to bounce along the runway, skipping the tyres along the surface, and then we're up in the air again. So we're running absolute flat out on the throttle. Look, and we're getting warnings that we're over torquing the propeller. So I'm going to pull the engine back to our normal cruise level and trim the aeroplane. We can center the heading, we can go autopilot on, and we go for our next airfield, which is going to be over at Bari, so 318 degrees on the compass, bearing in mind we've got the wind coming at us though. So we go 318 degrees. So yeah, hopefully I'll explain that again about the engines, because we got obviously distracted by the door and then being on approach. So yeah, at ground level, the mixture of air to fuel going into the engine is balanced. So it's, you know, it's designed for the first few thousand feet of flight. On a rich mixture is going to be the most power, where all of the fuel is getting burnt based on the amount of air coming in. As you gain in altitude, the air gets thinner, so you need more air for the same amount of fuel, but you can't control that because the air is what is there that you're flying through. But you can control the fuel, the amount of fuel going in with the air. So if you lessen the amount of fuel going into the engine, which is when you make it lean, yeah, you are balancing the amount of fuel that can be burnt for that amount of air to keep the engine running optimally. So hopefully that makes sense. So the higher you get, the more you lean out the engine, the less fuel you pump into the engine. Finn Ross says hello in the live chat. Hello Finn Ross. Nice to meet you. So we've just taken off and we're en route to Bari in southern Italy. So you can see it's quite flat out here, but the hills will reappear soon. We're hoping to go to Naples, have a look at Vesuvius, and then we'll end at Rome today. So we can see the ground is coming up towards us slowly, and it will continue to do so. So we may go in the autopilot and go and raise our target altitude. We're at 1500 feet at the moment. We're going to climb to 3000 feet. So we've set our target altitude here on the autopilot, and now we go and select vertical speed mode, and we tell it the rate at which to get there, and we'll go for 1000 feet a minute to climb us through the 1500 feet, between 1500 and 3000, and the plane's doing it. Flaps are up, engine conditions good. Prop is not at max pitch, it's just off max pitch, and so is the power. You can see the autopilot is controlling the pitch itself, so it's spinning around on a servo. You can see that happening, and now you can see the sun going down. It might even be dark before we can get as far as Rome. Just looking at the time, it's 10 to 4 UTC, so 15:48. I think it might be dark even before we get to Naples even. We'll see how we go. It's going to be sunset very soon, so yeah, we may end up ending this flight at Bari, you know, and then we'll carry on to Naples and Rome another time, because it's going to be too dark. It's amazing to watch the sunset though, isn't it, out the window? It's gone behind the cloud at the moment. So en route to Bari, we'll watch the sun going down. EFT. You've lost me with what you mean by EFT. I'm just looking at the chat. So William's saying, wait, it's EFT. Can you explain how to use EFT to determine peak? I don't know is the answer to that. I could always look it up and explain it, but so could you. There are probably formulas you can use with various different aircraft, and it will be in the operator handbook. There we go. There's our friendly neighbourhood porter is just crossing across in front of us. So if we go and look from the outside view, you can see him over there. And if we go and look towards the sunset, we can watch the sun going down as we fly towards Bari. You can see some windmills over there. And there comes the porter into shot. I'll come off the throttle a little bit so we're not going flat out. Check the indicated airspeed, see what we're dropping to. Yeah, we're coming down to about 140 knots. Probably a little bit less than that eventually. I'm just trying to balance it. There we go, 140 knots indicated. Oh yeah, the modelling of the sun and the cloud and mist is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Hiya. Be back in a few minutes. Okay. EGT, exhaust gas temperature. Yes, you probably can use the exhaust gas temperature to figure out peak, because you'll know if the fuel is burning efficiently, the temperature is going to raise. Obviously, if you flood it, it's not going to burn as efficiently, it won't burn as hot. Obviously, if you starve the engine, it's not going to burn as hot. So you'll be able to see the exhaust gas temperature dip either side of the peak fuel mixture. Yep, the sim does look amazing, doesn't it? It can look very, very real. Especially if you go to the drone camera and you arrange things like be absolutely ridiculous how good it is. Obviously you know it's not real because you can't put a camera there, but maybe if you did something like, you know, a natural looking camera angle. It's very clever, isn't it? At what point do you call VFR IFR? Well, IFR, you've filed a flight plan. And you're flying the flight plan throughout the flight, instrument flight rules. So you are, yeah, it's a difficult one, I guess. I guess you could switch to instrument flight from visual flight. So once you're instrument flight, you're following navigation points, and you're following a flight plan. That's all it really means. And that, not just laterally, it could be vertically as well. Yeah, so each waypoint you will be agreeing to be at a given altitude. And if you're using standard instrument departures and standard approach routes into airfields, you will have minimums and maximums, like in terms of altitudes and speed, on the various legs of the departure or approach route. But yeah, the simulator is doing a fantastic job, isn't it? And I appear to have, there we go, I've forgotten where I was around the aeroplane, so we can see the sun going down as we approach Bari. How are we doing on that, by the way? So I need to turn turning to 330 degrees, and we'll see how that goes. Should take us pretty much directly to Bari. So yeah, we'll be landing at Bari, and that will be the end of today's live stream. And we'll have another crack. Maybe later tonight I'll rewind time to do it, but I've been on here for several hours already. So we've gone all the way so far from Palermo, down in the corner of Sicily, right the way across the boot of Italy, and we're going to Bari, which will be our end for today's flight. And then we'll concentrate on the next flight about looking at Vesuvius, flying around Naples, having a look at the city, and then making our way up the coast to Rome. And obviously there's loads of things to go look at in Rome. Okay, so we're en route to Bari, on the eastern coast of Italy. And we're watching the sun go down. So there's a photo, let's get a screenshot of that one. Yeah, just responding to Swag Ice Bear on about using the instruments. Yeah, that's just using the tools at your disposal. But IFR would really mean following a flight plan, really. Using the instruments to follow a flight plan. I guess you could still argue, you know, if it's instrument flight. But instrument flight rules are that you have, it's rules. You have filed a flight plan, you are following it. Of course, the next step up for people, which you can't really do on a live stream, is to use air traffic control along the way as well, which you can do with something like VATSIM. So then you get human air traffic controllers, which is great fun. We could use the air traffic control in the game if we want. So when we get to Bari, we could contact them and see what instructions they give us for the approach. So we're just coming up, we're about 25 miles out, so we could contact them now. Let's go inside. Centre our view up. You can see the porter there directly ahead of us. Just going out onto our starboard wing. So we're going to call air traffic control now. And go to the nearest airport list. And we want to go to Bari, which one was it called? Palazzi Macchi. and we're going to tune to the tower, and we are going to request a full stop landing at Bari.
Tower Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo is 18 miles southeast, 3,000 feet with Yankee to land.
Oh, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo, Bari Tower. Altimeter tree, 0.18 with 336 at 29er. Fly left downwind runway, 07.
Okay, so they want us to fly a left circuit downwind to runway 07. So let's go and have a look at the map to see, unpack what that means. They want us to fly around the airfield basically and come in turning left towards runway 7. Now we can get that drawn onto the map for us. So if we go and add the traffic pattern, we want runway 7, we want the left pattern, and we can go OK. So you get a diagram of the traffic pattern for runway 7. Yeah, just to give you an idea what they're talking about. They obviously they want us to acknowledge that we've heard that, so
Make left downwind runway 07 Bravo Echo Kilo.
there we go. We've acknowledged that we've heard the instruction, so we're going to enter the left traffic pattern for runway 7 at the airfield. So you can see us coming in from the southeast sometime soon. Here we come. So we are going to make our turn 5 degrees more. Let's go and turn some cabin lighting on while we're at it. It's getting dark. Cabin lights on. We'll turn the landing lights on while we're at it. Let's get the yoke out of the way so we can see what we're doing. Landing lights on. Turn the taxi lights on as well. So we're going to light the sky up like a Christmas tree on our way in. So we go and look outside now. There's our lights. So we're a couple of minutes out from Bari. We're going to fly around the airfield and go on the left traffic pattern into runway 07. I need to check the rules with VATSIM. Someone's asked in the stream why I'm not using VATSIM while I'm flying along. Well, for one, I would have to keep interrupting with talking, about what we're doing, which would be not so much fun for people watching, so I can't answer questions so easily. Because I'd have to have half an ear out for being called out on the radio. And also, I'd have to check the rules on VATSIM if they like being live streamed or not. I'd have to check. I'm very reticent about doing anything without people's permission on the internet. It's just a respect thing, really. Okay, so let's go change our heading to 340. So we're looking to come around the airfield. So we're at 3,000 feet at the moment. We've already corrected the altimeter. So let's unpack what they told us. Bari Tower, you are 18 miles southeast at 3,000 foot with Yankee to land. Yankee refers to the weather. So throughout the day, the letter changes through the alphabet so you know how old your weather report is. So altimeter 30.18. So we've just changed that, so 30.18 inches, which is the barometric pressure that the altimeter is tuned into. So the way that works, altimeter reads air pressure. That's how it knows how high you are above the ground. Obviously the air gets thinner, as we talked about earlier, as you get higher. But it's not consistent and it varies with the weather, so you can't just set it and forget about it. So anywhere near the ground you have to have that, or for a destination airfield, you have to tune your QNH to the barometric pressure for the altimeter to the local barometric pressure, which we've done. Telling us the wind is from 336 degrees at 29 knots. That's fast. We're going to have a 29 knot crosswind. That's right on the limit of what this plane can do. Fly left downwind runway 07. Did we hear a transmission? That's where we reported, because usually with air traffic control you have to read back their instruction and then they confirm you have read back correctly, which obviously it doesn't do in the sim. And somebody's saying, can I spam? And they're about to get banned from the server. Hide the user from the channel. Goodbye everybody. The legend is about to vanish. Apologise for spammers. Unfortunately, spammers either tend to be Russian or American every single time. No other country seems to do it. I don't know why. Okay, so just remove the spammer. So we're coming in to enter the back of the traffic pattern for runway 07. So if we go outside, we should be able to see the aeroplane. The airfield. Oh, there's a rotary. What is that? Is that a Taurus or something? There's a stadium. What's the circular road? What's that all about? Raccordo Giuseppe Rossi. Soccorso Stadale Stadio San Nicola. So is it a famous landmark they built a circular road around? It's got circular... That's bizarre. Somebody would love to look that up on the internet to find out what that's all about. So we've got a stadium down here at Bari. It's a football stadium. So you can see the airfield out here. So we're going to fly past the departure runway at 1500 feet, and then we're going to turn left. There's a running track down here. You can see the traffic lights now, can't you? Stretching out to the distance and all the roads. So you can just see the sun dipping down now to the horizon. The sun is about to set. Okay, so we are going to descend now to 1500 feet. So target is 1500, vertical speed 1,000 feet a minute. Spammers tend to be little kids messing about that think it's hilarious to deface things. The spam you tend to get in internet chat rooms doesn't even lead to anywhere. It's not even links, it's just graffiti. And they think that's hilarious for some reason. I don't realise everyone in the room thinks they're an absolute and utter, well, I'm not going to say the word. Not a nice person. Let's put it that way. Okay, so there are entry points onto a normal pattern, and if you look on the chart for the airfield, there would be a proper pattern. So I've just drawn a pattern on. The length of the legs may not be correct for the real place. You know what the controllers want you to do. So you can see the airfield over there now. We will be turning left to about 250 degrees, I guess, to looking at the wind, to hold against the wind. So we'll be doing that very soon. So we're just watching the airfield. We're going to come in at the other end of this runway. So let's turn left 250. So I'm just moving the selected heading for the autopilot to 250 degrees. We will take over manual control. We'll go for 255 to begin with. I'm not sure how much of an angle we're going to need to combat the wind. And we'll start coming off the speed, start losing airspeed as we go downwind. When we get parallel with the end of the runway, air traffic control will get back in touch with us and give us landing clearance or not. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good word, Si. I would have used even far stronger than that. If, in the words of James May of Top Gear fame, I might have called him an utter cock, but there you go. I'm not going to use anything stronger than that. Okay, so we're flying the downwind leg on the entrance to Bari on the east coast of Italy. It's a huge airport, and we're in a tiny little aeroplane, so we're going to need about a tenth of the runway, and then we'll just pull straight off into the terminal, so we can take our time landing, to be honest, because we will land very quickly. So let's have a look at the direction we're flying. So we're almost holding the track. Look, we guessed pretty much on the 10-degree track. So get ready, air traffic control will be onto us any moment when we get parallel with the apron. It might even be here. There we go. So we're now cleared. So we acknowledge the landing clearance. Let's turn the yoke back on. Let's straighten our view back up. So we're going to fly this by hand. So off the autopilot. Start descending gently. Around to about 160 degrees then. Again, we can be looking out the whole time to see the runway. Flaps down to the first stage. Flaps down to the second stage. We've just overshot a tiny bit, but not too bad. Let's get this out of the way. So you can see I'm having to crab into the crosswind slightly. We'll sit up so we can see over the nose. The wind is down to 13 knots at ground level. It's not bad at all. Let's keep it nice and steady on the way in. Just balancing it on the centre line of the runway, looking for the markers. Engine to idle. And remembering the wind is going to try and push the tail round quite rapidly. So we go full right rudder and we force the plane. And we lift the flaps. We've just missed that taxiway, so we'll just carry on taxiing. We had to get the plane stable first though. So we'll go for the next taxiway. And we're down. So I told you we'd have loads of runway left, didn't I? Okay, here comes the next taxiway. We are lit up like a Christmas tree. You can see the spotlights as well hitting the ground. Whoa, the brakes are really rubbish. Yeah, I'm going to, but I don't want to tip the plane over. So acknowledge ground handoff. Taxi to parking.
Bari ground golf. Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo request taxi to parking.
Golf. Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway Charlie Tango November.
So let's have a look. Charlie Tango November. So we can go to any of these parking spots really. So 47, 45, so on and so forth. So we carry on straight ahead basically.
Bravo Echo Kilo, did you copy?
Yes, we did.
Taxiing to general aviation parking via taxiway Charlie Tango November Bravo Echo Kilo.
Should we get and park next to that caravan? Okay, parking brakes on. The easiest way to cut the engine on the Kodiak is you starve it of fuel, and that means you don't, in the real aircraft you wouldn't leave any fuel left in the engine. It's going to burn what's left, so you wait for the engine to die before you cut off the valves, therefore there's no fuel left in the system, which is good. We're obviously getting a warning now because we've lost fuel pressure, and the battery, we'll get a battery warning in a moment that is being used to generate electricity. So we'll come down here, we'll turn off the generator and the alternator. We're getting that second warning now about the alternator. Going to get warning city basically. So we'll just go and quickly whiz round and switch everything off. Windshield heating off, pitot heats off, bypass. That was off anyway, wasn't it? Ignition off, buses off. We can lift the master port fuel, lift that one and that one, so that's the fuel valves for the tanks, and turn the system off so it shuts up. And there we go. We're cold and dark on the ground. We can go and open the door at last and go and get out and go and get a cup of tea and go and get something to eat at the airport and go and find a bed for the night. What do I use to visualize the live airport map? So this was Little Nav Map. So this is a free piece of software, and in Little Nav Map you can connect it to a simulator and you can load its scenery library directly into the map so it overlays it. So you can see it here if I turn things off. So out of the box, let's go and get rid of that. Remove all the diagrams that we've drawn, remove our track over the map. So out of the box I will get rid of our flight plan for the moment and turn everything off. So out of the box it just shows a map of the world with you on it connected to the simulator. And there's various different maps you can show, so that there's little OpenStreetMap. So you can see there's Bari has just drawn itself in. But you can also get add-ons for it to borrow, I should say, Google's maps, so we can see a typical Google map of Bari. And then obviously that only shows you what's on the map. Obviously if we then start to click these buttons, these are going to show the data from the database that's been read from the scenery of the simulator. So we can suddenly see the detailed airport layout that is the simulator data. So those are the parking spots and those are the taxiways. Yeah, and it's got the letters on them as well. So it's read that directly from the scenery database of the simulator. So yeah, Little Nav Map is free, if you can believe that. It's a free application for Windows. And it's absolutely brilliant. If you go and search my YouTube channel, you'll see I've got several tutorial videos on how to do flight plans with Little Nav Map and how to use some of the, the functionality in it. So go and have a look at Little Nav Map. And also go to Virtual Flight Online and have a look if you want to come flying with us all tomorrow night. We meet at 2000 hours UTC, 8 o'clock in the evening UTC, which will probably be mid-afternoon for the US. Also subscribe, like the channel, go for it. Yeah, it's been great, the people that have been commenting along the way. You've kept me company, it's been fantastic, and I'll see you all again soon. But I'm going to stop recording now, so goodbye for now.